Welcome back to Fly the Coop. I am here with my love, Steve.
Hello.
We're going to talk about DIY Designer Homestead today because that's our sidekick, isn't it, honey?
You could call it that, I suppose, yeah.
So what are we all doing out here right now? Because there's so much.
Living.
Yeah.
We're living.
Living as organically as possible.
Yeah.
Him more than I.
I try. Yeah, no, chemical free. I mean, when you purchase a home, obviously you want to live in it, but you want it to be, I guess, whatever you particularly want. And what I want is organic gardens, clean water, a pond, fish, clean water that comes out of our well.
Yeah.
Taking care of our septic system. Those are all things that matter to me, and I want to do what I can to keep them as neat and clean. And that goes, I think it kind of segues right into health for us, for animals. We've got chickens and dogs, and soon to have turkeys and ducks and more chickens.
Just so fun. It is so fun. Many will ask, how are you guys keeping up with stirring all those pots? And it kind of just...
We're not.
It's a work in progress. But you know what? What I always say, and I think you agree, honey, just be present in the moment and inspired. And they all have synergy and kind of connect in a really cool way. Everything that's happening out here in terms of preservation and conservation, I think... Tell them what you think in terms of why we started DIY Designer Homestead and our hope in terms of gaining some momentum this year with the shares, because there's so much opportunity out here.
Well, I mean, part of it is, we have to, the things that I say we, and I know that you enjoy these things as well, but I mean, a lot of the outside stuff is really just me doing these things.
Right.
I mean, I want to be able to raise our own clean, organic produce. I want... because we have chickens, we have eggs, and I can tell you that unless you're probably doing this commercially, especially the way that we feed our chickens, they're free range, they're all, non-GMO, non-corn, non-soy, organic feed that I ferment and give to them. We don't do this to save money on our eggs.
No.
But we have some of the highest quality eggs that you can get anywhere. And then, just one thing leads to another. So we now have 26 chickens, so we get a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
And so
we go through a lot of eggs.
Yeah, we go through, and that's the whole thing, right? So there's a handful of us that eat them, and then our dogs, we feed our dogs all raw, organic, everything from grass-fed beef. We hunt venison, we hunt deer, so venison. I mean, the dogs eat their Belgian Malinois, and
that's a whole other story.
Yeah, it's kind of like a smaller German Shepherd, but they're still wolf-like, and they eat like all the bones. I mean, they don't just chew on the bones; they eat the bones.
Yeah.
Same with our chickens, and we raise meat chickens, and the dogs eat the chicken heads, the chicken feet. They eat the whole chicken, all of it. So and that is what we feed our dogs. But that's I wanted to have just the cleanest possible food and water that we can have. We just tested our well water, and it's really important. And so that leads to, if we're doing all this stuff anyway, and we know a lot of people out there have commented that they're like, wow, this is great. I would love to do that sort of thing, maybe on a smaller scale.
Right.
But you can do a lot of these things, at your house, in your own garden.
Anywhere.
You can have a lot of places you can have backyard chickens. We had some at her place in St. Paul.
Yep.
Just 4 of them. I don't know how many we could actually have, but it's worth looking into.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the lot, but a lot of people all over the country, it can be living in a city or a small town and have a small backyard, little oasis, and have some chickens back there. For sure, you can do that.
As long as you're careful about sound and stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, you don't have to go as big. I hate to say it big, but, with land, gave us the opportunity to explore and experiment with a lot of things. And we tend to both be personalities like that. And I think our hope is that even if it's on a smaller scale, inspired by what we truly both believe in, the physical health and well-being, especially as we're getting older, on the organic component and how beneficial and how important that is.
Well, health is a big driver for the whole thing. I mean, but for all of the animals, I mean, if you think about it, like go back to the dogs for a minute, the amount of money that people spend taking their dogs to the vet for various illnesses or cancer, all these things, you can avoid a lot of that by just starting with an amazing diet, good in, good out.
Right.
And I mean, it's preventative. And there are, getting back to your question, DIY designer homestead, we can make a business out of sharing all of that. We're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So why not share how we're doing it, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, share a lot of that. And we found just a lot of people are really interested in it. They want to have that kind of lifestyle to some degree, some level or another, but they all like it. I mean, and a lot of what we're doing, we're just like you. Like, we don't know how to do these things.
Right.
We were just out tapping maple trees. First time I've ever done that. Yeah. It's really fun.
We'll be sharing the video. Super fun.
But from that to, we raised last year 75 broilers, meat chickens that,
amazing.
Raised them. They were on fresh pasture every day. Again, all non-soy, non-corn, organic, fermented feed, in addition to fresh pasture, moving them every day. It's a lot of work.
And it was great for the yard.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like, so I mean, that's another example. Like, there are no chemical fertilizers. The chickens made the lawn look amazing. So doing all that, and then butchering. We butchered our own chickens. Never done that before. And if you've ever butchered a chicken,
I did not. That's a Trace and Steve thing.
Yeah, my son Trace and I did that. But it's again, never done that before. Didn't know how, but you learn as you grow. And I'll eventually get a hat that says that.
And it's just so amazing, like the idea behind it and physically the experience of eating that. It's no different than going in when we love going to Spoon and Stables or a restaurant. We don't get there often, but when we do, it's farm to table experience. That's no different here. So Steve's an amazing chef. And one of the pieces we're going to be doing throughout the year is working with Chef Steve. We're going to do a few things. Like right now, we have Pastor Larry, who we adopted Pastor Larry when
he came with the house.
He came with the house. He hunts on the land. And he and his wife are coming over for dinner tonight. So Steve is smoking this amazing, it's a roast. It's a
Boston butt pork shoulder.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah. I'm a little tired. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but for those of you watching this instead of just listening, I got up at 2 a.m. and I started smoking it at 3 because it's probably almost 8 pounds. Actually, it was a 23-pound roast, and I cut it in thirds, so it's nearly 8 pounds. And so it takes quite a while, and so I have to monitor it. It's just on it's like a regular kettle grill. So again, those are things where people are probably like, sure, I have a Weber kettle grill or whatever. Well, you can smoke a pork shoulder too. I'm using applewood from an apple tree I had to take down at my old house. It's all the things that we're doing. We kind of come at it from the standpoint of we're new at this, and we're hopeful. And as we build an audience, we've already had people. I've had people that have reached out and given me tips and pointers and things that I didn't know. And that's a big part of the reason why, from my standpoint, is I get to learn. I'm trying something I don't know how to do, but then some folks. Some of you folks out there can reach out and say, hey, no, don't do it that way. Do it this way. This way better.
Learn from each other.
Yeah, and really kind of build a community. And so that's what I kind of see DIY Designer Homestead as being, is really just kind of building a community of like-minded souls that want to get into this sort of lifestyle again on whatever level. Maybe it's just growing sprouts. We're just talking about that.
Yep. Which is so amazing. So Steve, I don't know, you just started out of the blue. We've been talking about it, and all of a sudden we have this like sprout growing thing going on, which he's completely running, and we have some tutorials it's so easy though, and they're so amazing. So we'll talk broccoli sprouts because those grow in these jars. We have a whole sequence we'll show you, and then 5 days?
Yeah, give or take. I'm pretty lax about. I don't really pay attention to the number of days. Sometimes I let it go a little too long, and they're growing in a mason jar, and so they get very intertwined and nearly impossible to get out. I'm also growing because our pork chickens. It's been a long winter. The laying hens, and so I've been growing barley sprouts for them. And same thing, barley sprouts are a real bear to get out of a mason jar if you let them go too long. I was about ready to break the jar and just call it a day.
But you'll see the sheet. I mean, it looks like this beautiful piece of turf, sod. It's gorgeous, and they love it. Yeah. They love it.
They need a little greenery in amidst all their non-green food.
So we ended up getting a freeze dryer last year. So that whole freeze drying process is remarkable. Like we're kind of addicted. We're going to be freeze drying avocado. We just watched somebody. You can reconstitute an avocado to taste just like.
Well, it is an avocado.
Yeah, so, it is an avocado, but
the flavor really, by and large, I mean, the texture is what changes more. So not so much the flavor, but also depends on what you're doing. So like we're freeze drying because I start broccoli sprouts every few days. And we're freeze drying them because you mentioned, why we started kind of out of the blue doing that. It's because it goes back to our dogs. We take care of as good a care of the dogs as we can.
Right.
And we found that one of our males, as it turns out, after a couple of MRIs, but preceding that was a number of injuries, and we didn't really know what was going on, but it was his spine was getting compressed and he was getting nerve damage to the point where he was fully paralyzed. I had to pick him up out in the woods after he ran into me. I didn't even see him coming.
No brakes on this dog.
Well, and we find out later he has a birth defect. He has a small brain, which affects his occipital lobe, which means he doesn't have the proper depth perception.
Right.
He and I both, apparently. But so, he ran into me. They're fast dogs. He's probably running close to 30 miles an hour. And he misjudged, and he ran into me. And that was the final of like 5 or 6 issues where he really compressed his spine. He just dropped to the ground.
Yeah,
and
it was
he
very
couldn't move.
scary, very scary.
So a couple of MRIs later, we find out that he had birth defect, smaller brain stem, all that filled in with spinal fluid, and it's made his spine. I hear one of the dogs barking now.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if you can hear it.
Ashley's down there.
But yeah, sadly, that has weakened his spine and caused, as it turns out, his spine in his neck actually fractured. Fortunately, and this speaks to why we're trying to do as much preventative maintenance on all of us in terms of our food.
Right.
These dogs from day one, they have been fed all raw, organic, highly anti-inflammatory foods. It includes like turmeric to get the curcumin. Is that right?
I think that's right.
And then I even put in fresh ground black pepper to get the capsaicin. Because you need the capsaicin to help make the turmeric.
It's fascinating.
The curcumin more biodigestible.
That's for humans, by the way, as well.
Yeah, like we eat it all the time. And then there's ginger powder, organic ginger powder. There's organic Japanese knotweed. We're going to start growing, and I'll start drying oregano, which is a superfood, and I didn't know that. I mean, so we're learning. We're learning as we go, or learning as we grow.
Yeah, that's the whole idea.
But it was, fortunately, we had already been doing a lot of this stuff. I mean, the dogs get, of course, all raw, organic meats, organ meats, all of that stuff. But fortunately, we've been doing that all along. And as a result, like 2 weeks after, he was still stumbly, and he still is stumbly a little bit. But he can sprint now. He can run and sprint, and
no one from the common eye would know other than us.
Yeah, he runs. There. He runs like a deer. He's kind of floppy.
That's not how that dog normally runs.
No, but he's still crazy fast.
Yeah.
But so the neurologist even was surprised. She said, because by the time that MRI was done, he was probably a week and a half after that last really kind of major accident that he had running into me. And she said, I can see where his spine was cracked. She said, but it's already fused. It's already stable and fused. She said, there's nothing I can do surgically. She's like, I don't know how it healed so quickly, but it did. She's like, I can see it. And I can see the bit of swelling and this, of course, the spinal fluid, which is filling in that whole area. But that's why his spine was weak. But with all of these anti-inflammatory foods, and which is also going back to the sprouts, why I started doing
the sprouts,
the broccoli sprouts in particular, fantastic for people. And there are studies out there, and I'm no MD, so do your own research. But studies out there that show the sulforaphane in broccoli sprouts can be as or even more effective than different types of chemo and radiation, specifically like for breast cancer. That sort of thing. So again, do your own research, but we grow the sprouts. And then in order to get the sulforaphane, which isn't already in there, you need to find a way to get it. You can heat it, and don't quote me, I want to say you can heat it to like the sprouts to like 158 degrees for 10 minutes. And the only way I could think of to do that would be like a sous vide cooking method where you can really control the temperature, but it just sounds like a lot of work and a real pain.
Yeah.
Or you can freeze them, which is what we were doing, just throw them in the freezer. Because you need to damage the cell structure.
Right.
The plants.
Fascinating.
Plants aren't like us. Like if someone is doing something to you, you can run away. Plant can't. So that's one of the methods it uses to protect itself. And so as soon as the cell structure starts to get damaged, it produces, there's like a chemical reaction, produces the sulforaphane, which you can do if you just eat sprouts. I say sprouts because it's more concentrated in sprouts than like in a full head of broccoli.
Right.
But just like through mastication, when you're chewing, you're damaging the cells and you're releasing the sulforaphane as well. We're just not efficient chewers.
Yeah.
So
nobody is.
You're not. Yeah, unless you're a cow.
Yeah.
I'm not implying anything. I didn't mean it that way. So the best way, the easiest way to do it is to freeze it, because then you're kind of uniformly damaging the cell structure, which is what you want. But that's kind of messy too, because when you take it out of the freezer, it starts to thaw, and when it starts to get wet, that starts to reduce the sulforaphane. So best method, and you can 3 or 4x the amount of sulforaphane, is freeze drying it. Then it's fantastic, because then we just leave it in a jar right on the counter. It's really easy to access.
So
you
good.
Sprinkle it on. It's really nice to just eat as a little snack, has a little peppery taste to it.
It has a great peppery taste to it.
It's really good. But again, so I didn't know any of this stuff until we needed to find more ways, and I'm still finding more ways to give the dogs, through food, ways to have less inflammation, certainly fewer chances of getting any cancers or anything. But for Circo, our male, the one that has the injury, the things that I learned are there are studies that show that are indicating you can actually regrow brain cells and regrow nerve cells.
Amazing.
By following a few things, obviously highly anti-inflammatory diet, but intermittent fasting. So I went from feeding the dogs once a day to feeding the dogs twice a day to feeding them once a day. I just give them more. And then going with a ketogenic diet, which I don't know if you know what that is. It's a high-fat, low-carb diet. You can still have proteins in there, but
just like a human.
It's a lot of fat. So like if you thought of it like a dinner plate, half of your plate are leafy green salads, that sort of thing, broccoli, sprouts, all that good stuff. And then you have like a quarter of your plate is a high quality fat of some sort, and a quarter of your plate is protein. So I increase the amount of fat I give the dogs a little bit. They were already close to a keto diet, but now they are. So intermittent fasting, keto diet, and weirdly sprinting. And that was a problem with our male because he had a hard time walking, just standing up. He would tip over and fall down. But now through, managing the inflammation, which again keeps going back to food and keeping it clean and chemical free and all that good stuff, he is sprinting.
Full on running now.
Yeah, he definitely has the ability. So I try and get him out sprinting. We've had a lot of ice and stuff, so I don't want him falling, getting hurt again. So we're around that.
Trying to be careful.
Yeah, around that. But we've had him out sprinting as much as we can, and that apparently helps rebuild, more quickly, I guess. Rebuild brain cells, nerve cells. Makes those connections happen. So
I think the diet piece of it, I've had many clients even that kind of know what we're working on out here, have asked more about the food, and we will put the recipe, Steve's recipe, up on Instagram and Facebook. That is a game changer. The diet component, for sure. We have many friends who've lost pets. We pay more attention now that we're going through this process with these new puppies that we've got. The health component and their longevity and the long-term effects of making some adjustments in how you feed your pets is a really big deal. Really big deal. We've learned a lot in the past even 6 months. And we have so many people that are spending tens of thousands of dollars literally in a lifetime on veterinary bills because they're dealing with different health issues. It's something to for sure explore, I think.
Well, there's a lot of information out there. It's free to learn. Like things that and because he's not the only dog that we had injured, unfortunately. We lost when we first got our 2 siblings. They were from the same litter. Our male back then ended up eating, it's called a death cap mushroom. It's apparently like the most toxic mushroom in the world, responsible for over 50% of the human deaths associated with mushroom poisoning, because there's a lookalike in the Amanita family.
It's not even supposed to be growing in the United States. It definitely is. It's a European mushroom.
We had it here on our property. I grew up in the woods. I had dogs in the woods all the time, and I've never heard about it or run across it. And so I just didn't know. And it's what you don't know that is potentially harmful. And in this case, we lost Maximus, was our pup. We lost him to mushroom poisoning after 4 days in a lengthy, expensive hospitalization. But it poisons his liver. Now, what I didn't know, but I do know now, is that we could have likely saved him had I known to have milk thistle on hand and get that into his system to help protect his liver.
Again, for humans, by the way.
Yeah, totally. It's great for you. I mean, we should all be eating milk thistle. But I didn't know that, and this has really been eye-opening and an opportunity to learn. So it's causing me to put together what is in essence a med kit. Like, if your dog eats something it's not supposed to eat, what do you do to get it to throw up and get that out of his system or her system, right away. So you're not causing these problems.
Yeah.
I believe we could have saved our pup had I known these things. So we're putting together, which we'll share. We're putting together. It's just a med kit that's, everything that we run across, which other people could. And I did find out there were other people that have also lost their dogs in our area to this. But the majority of people had no idea that this could happen. We didn't.
The area doesn't know that this mushroom was growing here until this happened to us. But then because we were lucky enough to have a sample of what Maximus had taken in. So we were able to bring that in and have it identified. And then, the vet was even saying that's probably because there was no way for them to track other animal losses that have come in. They didn't know.
Well, they've had a few. They've had some, but typically they're older dogs, larger dogs. And if you catch it quickly enough, you can, you can do some, some things medically, but really that particular mushroom attacks the liver. It shuts down the liver initially, and then that's the end. So milk thistle would likely have protected our dog. Just didn't know about it. And similarly, like where we're at for both people and animals is so where we're at. We're in the woods, and there are an enormous amount of wood ticks here. Lots and lots of ticks and deer ticks. Certainly, there's probably Lyme disease in some of them. So there's a product, it's a root, it's called cryptolepis root, which interestingly, you can get in a liquid in a tincture, but also you can get it in a powder. I got it in a powder form because that's something I'm starting now, actually, even though I was just out walking the dogs and there's still snow up to my mid-thigh in places.
You don't want to talk about that.
but no, the ticks are starting to come out now for sure, despite that. But so I'm adding that to the dog's diet as preventative for Lyme disease to help keep them from getting that. And again, for people, you can go a pharmaceutical route, which studies I've read say like doxycycline and whatnot is like 60 to 70% effective at battling it, whereas studies have shown that cryptolepis root is 100% effective.
Crazy. It has all kinds of cool other benefits too.
And zero side effects.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah. We'll put that up too. Yeah. It's a really interesting one.
So as we run across these things, and putting together this med kit, we may even turn that into a little side business as well, where we tell you what to do if you want to go through the work and pull it all together and whatnot. Like when I'm giving the dogs these supplements, it's actually pretty easy because I only feed the dogs once a day. So I'll just set up a bunch of little jars and I'll go through each product and put a little bit in each one and each, so then I've got a week's worth of stuff and it takes me 10, 15 minutes max to put that together for them. And then I dump it in their food.
But people are about the convenience. So, and there's an awareness of that out there.
Yeah, we'll show people we'll show you how to make it, but
Yeah.
then, we'll probably put together that and, like I say, a supplement package for dogs, cats, whatever, and also a med kit, like a DIY med kit, but we'll probably put one together. It's just one of those things you don't anticipate.
Yeah.
It's like the same reason you wear a seatbelt. You don't,
we
it's
were
like
just talking about this.
You're not planning to go out and get into a car wreck,
No.
but just in case you do.
So we're going to set up a store this year. I'm not sure what month that's going to happen, sooner than later. And we will be trying to help elevate the ease of it, if you will, by putting together some packaging and having some of this creation out there for people to pick up and purchase, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're sort of like a funnel, I guess is kind of how I look at it. Because of all the things we're experiencing, we're gathering a bunch of information.
And it's very time consuming, by the way.
It is. It's not all necessarily going to be pertinent to everyone, but as we do it and kind of condense it, if we can find a way, like through this, to share some of this stuff to benefit, like I would not want someone to go through what we went through
with Maximus
or with Circo.
Yeah.
So and again, back to our own health. It's like all of these things that we're doing are fantastic for us too.
Yeah.
So.
We're doing all the same stuff. Loving the broccoli sprouts, by the way, folks. So check out that video because it's super fun and it is so easy. Anyone can make broccoli sprouts. Anybody can.
True.
On that note, there you go. DIY Designer Homestead from Fly the Coop. Thank you for listening, and we will be back at you next time.
Enjoy your maple syrup when it gets done here eventually.